defendant was the designated driver. The defendant was the designated driver who drove drunk. Because the defendant was the designated driver who drove drunk, Vanessa Sullivan is dead. Because the defendant was the designated driver who drove drunk, Vanessa's parents buried their only child. On September 24th, 2010, the defendant goes to a bar with Vanessa Sullivan and her best friend. The defendant knows he's going to be the designated driver tonight. He drinks anyway. He's having drink after drink after drink after drink. Whiskey, mixed drinks, beers, shots. Now he insists that he's okay to drive. So he gets behind the wheel. And now he's speeding. Loses control of the car, and he spins across the road. He crashes into a tree, and he kills Vanessa Sullivan. Members of the jury, we had to prove some things to you today. We had to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt. And not beyond any doubt. When you go back to deliberate, we know you'll have some questions. We've provided you with answers to those questions. First, we had to prove to you that the defendant operated a motor vehicle and that he was under the influence of alcohol intoxication. The defendant drank at the bar from 2 p.m. until he left 10 and a half hours later. Just 45 minutes before the defendant left the bar, he had 3 separate drinks. 2 shots and a tequila sunrise. You've heard about how the defendant was acting that day. He was slurring his words. He was stumbling. He even spilled his drink on his server. More than that, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you heard the defendant got up and played the band's guitar until he was pulled off stage. Then he got behind the wheel of a car. Now he wants you to believe that he wasn't driving under the influence. We also had to prove that the defendant killed Vanessa Sullivan by injuring her in a motor vehicle. No one has contested that Vanessa Sullivan died as a result of the crash with the defendant at the wheel. We also had to prove that when the defendant killed Vanessa Sullivan, he recklessly engaged in conduct which created a grave risk of death to another under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to human life. Let's talk about what that means. The judge just told you that a person acts recklessly when he disregards a substantial and unjustifiable risk. And then disregarding that risk involves it involves doing something that none of us, a law-abiding citizen, would do on our darkest day. It involves disregarding a risk that a law-abiding citizen, disregarding actions that a law-abiding citizen would observe in the actor situation. The server told you the defendant had 11 drinks while he was at the bar. The defendant's own experts got up here and told you he was too drunk to drive. Both the alcohol experts agreed the defendant was too drunk to drive. 0.19. That's how high the defendant's blood alcohol concentration was that night. It's more than twice the legal limit. Folks, that's more than double. Vanessa Sullivan was 21 years old. She had her entire life ahead of her. She had dreams. She had aspirations. Now, none of those dreams will ever come true. She will never see her 22nd birthday. Vanessa Sullivan deserves justice. We proved that the defendant was driving under the influence. We proved that the defendant was reckless. And the defense is trying to tell you that it was the circumstances that caused Vanessa Sullivan's death. The defendant put himself in those circumstances. He could have taken a cab. In fact, he was offered a cab, but he turned it down. He chose to drive. Not only did he choose to drive, he chose to speed 16 miles per hour over the speed limit. In the rain. In the dark. Is that reckless to you? Find the defendant guilty of driving under the influence. Find the defendant guilty of murder.